You might think you know who your friends, colleagues, or even family members are, but what if some of them are quietly testing you without your awareness? Manipulative people don't announce their intentions. They probe, nudge, and watch, looking for cracks in your confidence or triggers in your emotions. It's unsettling, but here's the paradox. The very moments that feel like weakness can become your greatest sources of power once you understand them. Imagine someone subtly questioning your decisions, dropping tiny hints, or guilt-tripping you for things that shouldn't matter. At first, it seems harmless, even trivial, but each interaction is a test, a carefully designed probe to see how you react. The truth is, most people fail to notice these manipulations until it's too late. Recognizing the signs early is the fast track to reclaiming control, turning vulnerability into insight, and protecting yourself before damage is done. By the end of this guide, you'll not only be able to spot manipulative tests from a mile away, but also respond with calm, clarity, and confidence. You'll learn how to identify your weak spots, defend them, and even transform them into strengths that manipulators can't exploit. It's a roadmap to empowerment, showing that awareness, strategy, and inner resilience are your best allies, and that the tables can be turned decisively. Manipulative people rarely show their true intentions right away. At first glance, they might seem charming, helpful, or even genuinely interested in you. But behind that friendly facade, there's often a subtle agenda at play. Think of it like a magician's trick. You're focused on the glittering coin in the air, while they're quietly setting up the next illusion. Understanding this hidden agenda is the first step in protecting yourself, because awareness strips away much of the power they try to wield. One practical way to recognize manipulation is to pay attention to patterns rather than isolated incidents. For example, does someone consistently test your patience, guilt, or loyalty in seemingly small ways? These moments are rarely accidental. Manipulative individuals often observe reactions meticulously, like a chess player calculating several moves ahead. Keeping a mental journal of these interactions can be surprisingly enlightening, helping you connect the dots before it's too late. It's also helpful to distinguish manipulation from honest persuasion or influence. A true friend or colleague may challenge you, but they respect your boundaries and intentions. Manipulators, on the other hand, subtly push you into corners where you feel compelled to comply. Recognizing these patterns early prevents long-term emotional drain. And just when you start feeling a little confident in spotting these behaviors, the next layer of testing awaits, one that targets your specific weak spots. Manipulative people aren't guessing when they target you, they're very intentional. They look for patterns in your behavior, emotional triggers, and personal insecurities. Think of it as a locksmith testing every keyhole until they find one that opens. Your weak spots aren't flaws. They're just areas where you might react more intensely or predictably. Recognizing these spots is crucial because once you know what they seek, you can regain control of the interaction. A practical example: imagine someone notices you hate confrontation. They may drop subtle criticisms or passive-aggressive comments to see if you'll overreact. Or, if you crave approval, they might dangle compliments just to make you dependent on their validation. In real life, these moments might seem minor: a sarcastic remark, a guilt-laden suggestion, but they reveal exactly where you're vulnerable. Keeping a log of recurring emotional reactions is a surprisingly effective tool for spotting patterns. It's also important to separate genuine feedback from manipulation. The difference lies in intent and consistency. True feedback builds you up or helps you grow, while manipulative tests are designed to provoke, confuse, or control. Understanding this distinction empowers you to respond with clarity rather than instinctive reaction. And as you start identifying these weak spots, you'll notice manipulators moving to the next stage, testing tactics that are subtle, almost invisible, but highly effective. Manipulative people rarely confront you head-on. Their tests are usually subtle, almost invisible at first. They might drop tiny comments, pose tricky questions, or create scenarios where your reactions reveal more than you realize. Think of it like a cat gently poking a sleeping dog to see how it reacts at first. It's playful, but it's all a test. Recognizing these tactics early can save you from being caught off guard and manipulated repeatedly. Some common examples include flattery with a twist, guilt-tripping disguised as concern, or harmless bets to push boundaries. For instance, they might say, "I wouldn't ask if it weren't important," nudging you to comply without realizing you're being tested. Another classic tactic is exaggerating a minor mistake to see if you'll over-apologize or lose confidence. Documenting these subtle patterns in your daily interactions can turn what feels like chaos into a map of predictable behavior. It's worth remembering that these tests often escalate in complexity. Once a manipulator knows your weak spots, they combine tactics like testing patience while mixing in praise or feigned vulnerability to keep you off balance. Awareness and reflection are your strongest defenses. And just when you think you've spotted all the tricks, they often shift focus to your emotional triggers, which is where the manipulation hits hardest. Manipulative people are experts at finding the exact emotional buttons that make you tick. They pay attention to what makes you anxious, guilty, proud, or fearful, and they use those triggers strategically. It's like they have a remote control for your reactions, pressing the buttons one at a time to see how you respond. Recognizing these triggers is key because it shifts the power back to you. Once you know your buttons, you can choose whether to react or remain calm. A practical scenario: imagine someone subtly questioning your loyalty or competence. Even a tiny comment like, "I thought you were better at this," can spark defensiveness or doubt. Another example is when they exploit your empathy, telling exaggerated stories of hardship to make you feel obligated to help. In real life, these triggers often appear harmless, but they accumulate, eroding confidence and decision-making ability. Journaling emotional reactions or discussing them with a trusted friend can help you see the patterns clearly. It's crucial to understand that triggers aren't weaknesses, they're natural human responses. Manipulators exploit them, but you can train yourself to recognize and respond intentionally. Techniques like pausing before replying, deep breathing, or mentally reframing the situation create space to respond wisely. And as soon as you start mastering your reactions, you're ready to catch the tests even earlier, which leads us to the next step: building awareness before the trap closes. Catching manipulative tests early is like spotting the first ripple before a wave crashes over you. It requires mindfulness and attention to subtle patterns in behavior, tone, and timing. Manipulators thrive on distraction and autopilot reactions, so slowing down your responses gives you a major advantage. Small pauses, careful observation, and reflection can transform what feels like being controlled into conscious decision-making. One practical approach is to mentally step back during interactions. For example, if someone makes a comment that usually triggers defensiveness, pause and ask yourself, "Is this feedback, a test, or an attempt to manipulate me?" This simple question can prevent knee-jerk reactions and allow you to respond thoughtfully. Another strategy is keeping a private log of incidents, noting emotional responses and outcomes. Over time, patterns emerge, revealing manipulative strategies you might have overlooked. Awareness also grows through education and perspective. Reading books on psychology, manipulation, or negotiation like Influence by Robert Cialdini can provide frameworks for understanding behaviors that feel instinctively confusing. The more tools you have to interpret and anticipate manipulation, the stronger your emotional armor becomes. And once you've built this awareness, the next step is crucial: setting clear boundaries to turn the tables and reclaim your power. Setting boundaries is where awareness turns into action. Manipulative people test limits because, without boundaries, they have free rein to push and probe. Think of boundaries as invisible fences once established. They make your personal space off limits. These aren't walls to isolate you, but tools to communicate clearly what is acceptable and what isn't. And manipulators instinctively respect firmness and consistency. A practical example is saying no without over-explaining. Instead of justifying or apologizing, you can respond with calm authority. "I'm not comfortable with that, and here's why." Manipulators often try to twist guilt into compliance, so maintaining a neutral tone and repeating your boundary when challenged signals that you're no longer an easy target. Another tactic is using timeouts or temporary disengagement when pressure escalates, allowing both reflection and emotional reset. It's important to reinforce boundaries consistently. One slip, one exception, and manipulators notice immediately. They test boundaries repeatedly to find cracks. Clear limits also send a strong internal message: you value your autonomy. Once boundaries are firm, manipulators' influence diminishes, and the next step is long-term reinforcement, strengthening inner resilience so these weak spots no longer feel vulnerable. True protection against manipulation doesn't end with boundaries, it grows from inner strength. Emotional resilience, self-awareness, and confidence act like an internal shield, making it harder for manipulators to find footholds. Think of it like building a fortress. Walls' boundaries keep intruders out, but a strong foundation, inner strength, ensures you remain steady even under pressure. Developing habits that reinforce this foundation is essential for long-term security. Practical steps include regular self-reflection, journaling your reactions, and practicing mindfulness to stay centered. Another powerful strategy is expanding your knowledge of human behavior, reading psychology books, observing patterns in relationships, or even role-playing challenging scenarios. Physical and mental well-being also play a role. Sleep, exercise, and healthy routines enhance clarity and decision-making, reducing the likelihood of being emotionally hijacked. It's also crucial to surround yourself with supportive, trustworthy people. Manipulators thrive in isolation, but a strong network provides perspective, validation, and guidance. Sharing experiences with trusted friends or mentors strengthens your awareness and reinforces boundaries. As your inner resilience grows, the weak spots manipulators once exploited gradually lose their power, completing the transformation from vulnerable to empowered, ready to navigate the next chapter of life with confidence. Now that you understand how manipulative people test your weak spots, the real challenge and reward lies in applying this knowledge. Start small, observe interactions, notice emotional triggers, and practice setting clear boundaries. Ask yourself after each encounter, was this a genuine exchange or a subtle test? Over time, these reflections become second nature, turning awareness into instinctive protection. Consider this: how many situations in your life have left you drained, guilty, or doubting yourself because someone was testing your reactions? By identifying patterns and responding intentionally, you regain control over your emotions and decisions. Imagine the freedom of moving through relationships without being caught off guard, confidently choosing when to engage and when to step back. So take action today. Strengthen your inner resilience, reinforce your boundaries, and cultivate a support network that keeps you grounded. Reflect on your experiences, ask tough questions about your interactions, and challenge yourself to respond differently. Remember, manipulators thrive on inaction and confusion. With awareness and deliberate action, you can flip the script, reclaim your power, and navigate life on your terms. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. There's a lot more wisdom coming that will help you stay one step ahead.